Without further ado, Mark Messier.
Thought Brandon had me in the doghouse out there for. Thanks for inviting me in.
It was the penalty box.
Penalty box. That's right. Good to see everybody.
Now, a lot of people don't know. Although when it comes to the Bronx, this is the VIPs of Yankee Stadium. Very important. Season ticket holders that the bread and butter. Rain, shine. This is who's the nuts and bolts of the Yankee organization. But a lot of people don't know you're going to be a neighbor. You're involved with a pretty big project. You want to tell us a little bit about that and why?
Yeah, I've spent the last 4 years actually in the Bronx. Started out as a small endeavor to relieve some of the pressure on ice here in the city, and we were looking at a building over in Queens, and the deal fell through, and the EDC of the city told us to go look at this beautiful structure in the Bronx, and we said, well, where is that? And they go, well, it's just about past Yankee Stadium. So we went and looked at the Kingsbridge Armory on 195th Street, and quickly realized that it was a huge building, much bigger than we were anticipating. We got the architects to come in there and realized that we could put 9 sheets of ice in there and become the world's largest indoor ice facility, and really kind of begin the process of creating opportunity for kids in the Bronx and across the metropolitan area. Just to throw a few numbers out, there's, in the national average across the United States, there's 1 sheet of ice per 100,000 people. In the metropolitan area, there's 1 sheet of ice per 1.2 million people. So we could put 80 sheets of ice in the metropolitan area and still be under the national average there. So we feel that there's a real need for it. We got just under 2 million kids in the public schools without a chance to play hockey because of access. There's no access. There are hardly any rinks, and if there are, they're already sold out. And create the opportunity, and we feel there's a tremendous amount of opportunity and talent, not only in the metropolitan area, but also in the Bronx that have never had the opportunity.
So this is not a small undertaking.
I thought hockey was a tough sport till I got into commercial real estate. That's a real blood sport. But it isn't. It's a 100-year-old building. It's city-owned. It's a landmark building, and you can only imagine what that encompasses, trying to repurpose it and do what we're trying to do. But it's an incredible vision. It's an incredible, and I keep using the word opportunity because that's what we're trying to create, is opportunity for our kids. And I think for most of you here that were in 1994, I think when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, we really transcended the game of hockey, and our outreach was far beyond anybody that was just a hockey player or just interested in hockey. I think people and kids that maybe had never seen a hockey game became interested, and those kids maybe turned around to say, well, I'd like to try hockey, only to find out that it was impossible. And we like to joke, and it's not a joke, but that if you're 12 years old living in a city, you have to retire because otherwise you have to move out of the city in order to continue to play hockey, which shouldn't be the case with 3 National Hockey League franchises here and all the idols and all the opportunities. So, it's something that it's a big project. We're going to create a lot of jobs. We're going to create a lot of access.
Is tournaments coming in?
It'll be
all kinds of activity.
International. We've already getting calls and fielding calls from Europe, all over Europe, from China, for people that want to send kids here, that people want to come and train here. We'll have all ice sports, short track, speed skating.
Will you be actively involved? I mean, you're going to
actively involved.
We're going to find you.
Brandon, I'm a CEO now.
Well, I never thought of you anything differently, to be honest with you.
Right.
I mean,
what the hell's a CEO?
From my standpoint, I don't think there was any more of a CEO than you on the ice. I mean, come on. I mean, right?
Thank you.
I mean, there's nobody that ran. I mean, you're the dream captain. I mean, because I think ultimately, as a manager, as a CEO myself, like you ultimately want to have your players manage themselves, and you ultimately have one player or two that can really, and you were always that player. Seemed like to me.
Well, I think I learned a lot from a lot of people along the way, which I think most leaders do. My father was an ex-hockey player. He was a real team guy. He was an educator. He had his master's degrees in education and psychology. So my brother and 2 sisters were his test bunnies or lab rats or whatever you want to call us. But I did. I had a lot of great players, a lot of great coaches as I was growing up, and learning how to become a professional. And time goes by so quickly, and next thing you know, you're thrust in the position of leadership and make a lot of mistakes along the way. But I think the most important thing that you can do, or that I tried to do, was be very honest and very transparent. So the players around me really could trust me, and they knew that I had their best interest at heart. And so if you did make a mistake, it wasn't critical, and nobody was pointing fingers, and we could figure out how to get through a mistake and continue on. And it was worked out in Edmonton, obviously, but I'd never dreamt coming to New York that I would have the type of players and the type of people and character coming into another organization. I thought it was a dream come true to have that in Edmonton, because players can go through their whole career and never have that. I get traded, after a good run in Edmonton, come into New York having no idea who's on the team, or only to fall into some unbelievable talent, unbelievable character, and set off on another journey of our own there until ultimately winning the Stanley Cup in 1994.
The C word, you talk a lot about culture. But what do you tell a team? I know you're a Yankee fan, and obviously they're kind of going through a reset here after a great run. What do you tell a team like this seems like it's got a lot of talent, it's starting to begin to build something really special? What do you do? Where do you think the difference is between this team really reaching its ultimate potential over these next couple of years?
Well, I think one of the great things that a franchise like the Yankees have, or the Montreal Canadiens, or you'd look at any sport that have history and tradition, and have had success. I mean, you have all the ingredients that you need in a franchise like the Yankees, because of the great players that have come through here, because of the successes that they've had, and because of the traditions that the people that were here before the players or the managers or the owners now set in stone. And I think what the Yankees have been able to do so well over the years is really keep their focus on those traditions, on those cultures. And George had his way that he liked things done. I don't see anybody out there with facial hair still. I mean, there's certain things that you think might be just small things, but it's part of the culture. It's part of who you have to be in order to play in this franchise. And if you don't like it, then you're not welcome here. And I think that when you drift off that or those kinds of philosophies, then you're kind of just wavering in the wind without anything to latch onto when things go wrong, or when you have an off year. So, I think the Yankees have been able to do that. They've been able to, draft and develop players, which is critical in any sport nowadays. I can really talk about the NHL. I mean, other sports I don't know so much about, but the NHL, it's all about drafting and developing now, and giving yourself an opportunity. And then when you match the drafting and the developing with your culture that has been instilled year after year after year, and these players come into a culture that they know exactly what's expected of them, and they're the ones that have to adapt to the culture of the team to be successful. And that's what I see here with the Yankees, and obviously all the teams across all sports that have been successful. That's one thing I think across the board that they've done well.
You made some changes when you came over. We'll talk about the Rangers for a minute. You didn't come in, I don't want to use the word quietly, but there was definitely some immediate changes that you had thought were necessary, back when you went to the Rangers, just from the locker room and certain things. You want to take us through a few of those, just a couple things? Or?
Well, you probably could remind me of a few, but I think that one of the challenges I had coming over from Edmonton is that, I started Edmonton as an 18-year-old, got drafted in the 4th round, was lucky enough to make the team the first year, and then we went on an incredible run, and within 5 years we had won a Stanley Cup. And then, through those years, and then as I got older, and I guess to my 12th year, and then we lost in the semifinals, you have so much experience, and you've experienced so much of losing and winning, heartbreak and setback and jubilation, all the things that go along with sports. And when I came to New York, the one thing I didn't anticipate was I couldn't use all those experiences with my new teammates, because my new teammates weren't really that interested in what happened in Edmonton. And I'm thinking, oh no, I didn't think of this. They didn't care what happened with Wayne and I. They didn't care how we won the Stanley Cup in '84 and what we did and how we ran our warm-up and, you know, how we ran our practice. They didn't give two craps about that. All they cared about is how we're going to create those same experiences together. So here I am sitting with all what I felt was a lot of intellectual property, and I couldn't use references, so I had to figure out how we were going to, and so you do the same thing. You just set up on your own journey and start creating experiences yourself with your new teammates and suffering losses and disappointments and victories, and that's what I did. And you know, there's always things that you look at. You know, well, the one thing about that I think we were talking about was in the dressing room. One of my favorite times when I played for 26 years was at 15 minutes after warm-up, that everybody's in the locker room and everybody's getting ready for the game, and you harness 20 players' energy together just before you go out onto the ice. And harnessing that energy was the most important thing for me, I think, as a captain and the leadership of the team, in order to make sure everybody was invited into the circle, everybody was present, everybody was made feel welcome, everybody was made to feel important. And when I got to New York, you know, I could, you know, in Edmonton, when I was sitting around the locker room, the way the locker room was constructed is I could sit in my locker room and I could see everybody, and everybody could see each other there, so we could look in each other's eyes and faces and make sure everybody was engaged and all the things. And when I got to New York, right in the middle of the room, they had a great big table, a training table with tape and great big water coolers and Gatorade coolers and cups and all that, so I couldn't see the other side of the dressing room. And when I first got there, I said, "Wow, this is kind of strange. I mean, you know, I can't even see my teammates 10 feet across from me." And so I said to Neil, I think at the time, I said, and to the coach, I said, "Do you guys not think it's strange that this is kind of blocking?" To me, it was like blocking energy. I use a term that is a visual blockage, but what I was trying to say, this is blocking the energy of 20 guys in the room that are trying to go out there as one unit and kick some ass. But so we changed that, and there were some other things like that needed to be changed. But there were small things and small hurdles along the way in order to kind of get to the culture thing that we talked about earlier.
What was it like to play with Wayne, though? What was so special about Wayne?
Well, Wayne was first of all, Wayne's very fun. He's really a fun guy to hang out with. Loves to have a good time. Has a memory like a walking computer, can remember any statistic from any player that played any sport at any given time. But more importantly, he was so far advanced of us in his maturity as an athlete. One story I always tell about Wayne is that we lived in the same building after like our second year or third year, but before that, every once in a while I'd go over to his house and we'd have some beer, or we'd get ready to go for dinner. And one day he was getting changed and ready, so I was rummaging around the apartment. I found my way into the kitchen, and on his kitchen, on a board, he had that month's schedule of the teams that were going to play. And on each game, he had written down what he thought he should and could do that particular game. So St. Louis on September 3rd, 3 goals and 3 assists. And the next game, 4 goals and 2 assists. And the next game, 5 goals, 1 assist, or whatever it was. But he had the whole thing marked out, and he wasn't that far off often. But his maturity level, his concentration, his preparation was so far advanced of ours that even though we were the same age and contemporaries in that regard, he really was a leader for us in so many ways. His practice habits were unbelievable. He was always the hardest working guy in practice. He worked on his game, his skills. And so from that standpoint, it was an amazing learning opportunity to see the greatest player in the world every day in practice, and then see him take that into the game and his readiness and preparation for the games. And then, of course, the way he treated the press, that was another learning experience there. There was never a bad question asked of him, no matter how crazy and how many times he had to answer it. From foreign press would come over, and instead of rolling his eyes, he would politely answer.
He was humble.
Very humble, and then he treated everybody from the locker room attendants. He included everybody, so it was a lot of fun to play with Wayne. It was a great learning experience, and and we played some of the best hockey ever to be played.
One quick question. We'll do some questions from the audience, but Captain, you're down 2-0. Tough weekend. You're in the locker room. You got to speak to the boys. What are you going to say to them?
Well, it's I remember losing the first 2 games at home against Quebec in 1995. And I made a statement after that, is that instead of being the hunted, now we became the hunters. And I think that's kind of the philosophy that the Rangers have to get. They have to change their mindset a little bit there. But also, the other diagram that I used to put up or have for myself is, one would be on this side of the ledger would be disappointment, and then with an arrow pointing this way, and then on this side would be determination with an arrow pointing this way. So it's disappointment, determination with arrows like that. And as you go through a playoff series, you're going to feel a lot of disappointment, and you can either decide to hang your head or sulk, or you can get very determined. And so that cycle through 2 months of playoffs is just like this. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. And it's how you handle now at being down 2-0. Instead of being disappointed, okay, now we got to get more determined. I think the Rangers feel that they're a better team. I think they feel they should beat Ottawa. I think everybody feels they should be able to beat Ottawa. But they got to get more determined now, more determined than ever, much like they did, and get more resolved, just like they did against Montreal. When the chips got down, then you saw the Rangers really battle back and play a hard, stiff game against Montreal and ended up taking the series over. That's what they got to do again. And so the 2 arrows, disappointment, that's 2 months of hockey.
Like that. Okay, we're going to go into the audience. That's good stuff. Simple way of looking at it. Okay. Hello.
Hi, Mark. Talking about the Rangers and their determination, do you think the fact that they changed the line so much is causing a problem?
I don't really think so. I think making adjustments is critical. I remember in Edmonton in 1983, we were one of the first teams that had in the dressing room a great big screen like this that we could push a button and it would come down, and while the game was going on, our video people would be taking clips of the game. So when we came in against the Islanders, it didn't work very well the first year in 1983, but we could run 3 or 4 clips to show us how they were killing our power play, or what they were doing on their power play or penalty kill, and of course that whole world has blown up since then. So making adjustments is critical. And I think that being able to adapt as a player is critical, and I think that trying to find the right balance and players on any given night is a coach's biggest responsibility, and that's going to change. Players don't feel good some games; they're a little bit hurt. They don't, they are having some bad luck, whatever it is, and then finding that secret match is important. If you can roll your lines and things are going great, you do that. But I would say that the amount of time that actually happens in a game, certainly a playoff game, is probably 30% before you need to make a change. And so the players have to be receptive to changing lines or different role. The coaches have to be, and you're just always trying to find that secret combination. But I don't think you can just be, status quo and just roll your lines out that you've had for so long. At a certain point, at time, it can become distracting at the same time, where it's too much, but I don't think we've seen that with the Rangers. Hopefully that answered your question.
Hi, Mark. In your famous prediction against the Devils, were you really feeling like we're going to win, or were you just kind of like bullshitting your way through to get the team going? Or
mostly bullshitting. No, I really did believe we could win, and we had proven it over the regular season. The only thing that separated us and the Devils from first and second overall was we had beaten them 6 times in the regular season. So I really felt that we were a better team, and I had been in situations before that because we weren't playing poorly in that series there, but the Devils were really playing well. And much like the Rangers right now, they're not playing poorly. They should have won the last game and they let it slip away. But they got to figure out a way to play better. We had to figure out a way to play better. We couldn't count on the Devils playing worse. You know, they had got the momentum. They were playing very good hockey, and they had proven they were really good hockey throughout their entire season. So we, collectively as a group, we had to look at each other in the room and say, can we play better, or is this all that we have to offer? And I've never been through a playoff series in my 26 years of playing hockey that critical point will come every year at some point, and where you have to look each other in the eye, and you all have to get honest with each other and say, is this it? Is this as far as we can go? And that point came with the Devils. And as captain, I really did truly believe that we could win. We could beat them, that we were a better team, but we had to figure out collectively and individually how to play better. And we were able to do that. And of course, everybody talks about Game 6 and scoring goals and all that, but we wouldn't even have been in that game if Richter wouldn't have stood on his head. And then, of course, we would have never won Game 7 if we didn't have a complete team effort. So, you know, you can look at individual efforts here and there and all, but in the end, it's a team that will win championships and that, you know, play consistently as a team. And sure, you might get heroic individual efforts every once in a while, like Richter in Game 6 or Mateau in Game 7, but over a long run, it takes the whole team.
Last question.
I hope it's a good one for you.
No bad ones.
Well, it's hard to believe it's been 33 years since that goal against Gord Dineen of the Islanders, which is one of the great one-on-one Stanley Cup goals ever scored. So that's a long time ago.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. I hear what you're doing regarding the skating. It sounds like a wonderful venture and great. Do you still harbor ambitions to be a hockey GM or running an NHL club?
Well, when I left the Rangers to come and join this project, it was a tough decision because with 30 teams, there's not a lot of jobs. There's not a lot of GM jobs. There's not a lot of coaching jobs at the NHL level there. And when you get out of it, you know, it's not easy to get back in. But I felt this opportunity was too important to the city, the kids, and the opportunity to grow the game at a national level here in New York City. And so I made the decision to do it. And we've crossed some rough water along the way. Trying to get it off the ground and get it built, but it looks like things are gonna finally get over the hurdle. And once this is complete, and I've been a part of building this, I would definitely entertain the opportunity of getting back in a position of management of some sort. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's, you know, part of an ownership or, you know, president of hockey or managing or coaching. I have no idea, but I've really committed to doing this, and I think it was the right decision at the right time, and still plenty young enough to take some years to do it, and then see what happens on the other side.
What's the tentative date?
Well, it's going to be a 30-month construction, and we were supposed to be done in 2018, but we've definitely been delayed, obviously, for all the reasons I'm sure you've all read about. And so if we get ourselves organized this summer, you can just kind of backtrack 30 months. So we're looking at 2020 probably at the earliest. You know, it's a $350 million project. It's, you know, it's very complicated. It's basically building a ship in a bottle with a 100-year-old building. We've done all kinds of tests inside the building to see what's in there. You know, you got water lines coming right down Reservoir Avenue. It's very complicated, but we got the best engineers in the world. We got the architects that redid the Madison Square Garden. We got the best in class of engineers and architects to do this. So we're quite confident that we can build something that everybody will be proud of.
Mark, is there a player out there that reminds you of you a little bit, that you say, wow, love that guy's game? Is it, you know, a couple players out there that you just say, wow, those are two guys to watch?
I thought Paul Newman in Slapshot was a good indication.
And you watch that movie like once a year?
I watched that movie. I watched it for the first time with my son the other day, and I go, wow, I forgot it was a little bit risque. Yeah, he's only 13. I was thinking it was going to be so fun, and I go, whoa, that's a little...